Hi everyone, and welcome to the 4DMethod 4D in Wakanda user group. Today is January 21st in 2016. Happy New Year everyone, and happy cold winter, at least for this part of the hemisphere. In Chicago it's pretty icy. Our agenda for today is we're going to go over some 4DMethod news. We'll get a 4D news update from Jim Sobczak and Brian Young there in California. We'll get some Wakanda news from Ricardo Mello. He is the new head of Wakanda for the Americas, so it'll be very interesting to see what exciting things are happening with Wakanda in the Americas. We'll have the 4D iNug e-Digest from Ed Hammond. Hi, Ed. We'll talk about what's to know in the knowledge base from myself, and we'll have a session I like to call Hey 4D. Talk about some ideas that we might like to see put it on their list of development. List for nice things to develop. So, and then today we'll have a special topic, special demo from Guy Algot in Canada on his Salesperson incentive interface. Then we'll have some general questions and answers. We'll talk about our next meeting on March 2nd. We'll have a guest demo from Rob Laveau of Plugger Software. That ought to be very exciting. He's always got a lot of tricks up his sleeve and nice offerings for the community. And we'll wrap up. Again, welcome. My name is Brent Raymond. This is the 4DMethod 4D in Wakanda user group. Our website is at 4dmethod.com, and we can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. Our mission is to combine efforts with other user groups around the world and bring together a scattered community of developers and users. We have a shared 4D in Wakanda experience here, so there's a lot to talk about. We stream all of our meetings via Google Hangouts to allow people to participate from anywhere. And all of our previously recorded meetings and presentations are available online. And we hope to provide fresh new content and exposure to all the regional groups and developers and users of 4D in Wakanda. A bit of 4DMethod news. There's a new 4DMethod demo video entitled Selection to Array with 4D Object Field Attributes. You've got the links right here, but you can you can check out the video from the 4DMethod site or go to this particular YouTube link. And the sample code, as usual, is available on my GitHub, Moses Walker Object Attribute Selection to Array. And that's just we have currently the ability to query on attributes, but this is a wrapper for actually pulling an attribute from an object field in a selection into an array of the correct type. So check it out. It's actually pretty handy, and I've found it useful already in some of my code for the summit. Again, all the demos are available on the 4DMethod website. Now we have a new tab that lists all the demos in particular, and some of the demos of our application here at the Art Institute of Chicago, if you'd like to check those out. Talking about the summit, just wanted to announce again that I'll be delivering a session at the summit this year. I'm very excited. It's called Virtualize Your Data Structure. We'll talk about what is a virtual structure, the advantages and disadvantages of such a strategy. We'll look at how we use this strategy at the Art Institute of Chicago and some of our interfaces and application functions. And then we'll go through a demo database that shows a simple virtual structure and some of the ways that it can be used. It's a very powerful strategy, and I think that it'll there'll certainly be something to interest everyone there. And now back to Jim Sobczak, the VP of Sales and Services for 4D Incorporated. Jim, so what's going on with 4D?
Hi, Brent. Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to the meeting. We're broadcasting live from beautiful downtown San Jose, where we're at a great 66 degrees here. So for those of you in Chicago and Guy, you in Canada, who are a little colder than that, you're welcome to visit anytime. So
I see the palm tree out there. Yeah, that's
not a problem. Yeah. That's it. So. Thank you, Brent and Ed, as always, for hosting the meeting and giving us some time to participate in that. Our team is growing here, as you can see, for the meeting. Today, I'm going to be relinquishing a bit of my time to Brian and to Ricardo, because they have important things to say. We're very busy right now working on the summit, as you can imagine. So we're just a little over 2 months away from the summit. Most of our sessions are locked down. A lot of the announcements you're seeing are going out. A couple things I wanted to mention. Number one is the first week of April. It's not in October this year like it's been for the last 15 years. So remember that, first week of April. Brian's going to mention more things about that. We do have some sponsorships already lined up from Objective Systems, whom you all know. That's Joe Batts. And from Footprints. That's Scott Gelvin, Phil Keth, and Jim Collar. There in Moab, Utah. So we have some early sponsorships. We've had interest from other companies, so we do have some sponsorships left. If you would like to sponsor at any level, just let me know. And then a couple things about sessions that we have at the summit this year that I thought I would mention. We are doing a Jumpstart 4D session, which is a beginning 4D session, a training session all day on the day of the pre-class. This is completely new for us at the summit. We've had a lot of requests for beginning training from people who have employees at their company who want to learn 4D, and this is a great way to get started. Angelo Carapresi is the trainer for this particular session. It's an 8-hour day, and you'll come out of that with a lot of good basic knowledge about 4D to hit the ground running. So we're happy about that. And I just wanted to point out Laurent Aino's session. Laurent, of course, is our VP of Engineering for 4D Global, and his session is on multi-threading and 64-bit architecture. This is a major change for 4D, moving into the preemptive multitasking architecture. So this is going to be a great session, probably worth the cost of the summit alone. So many changes are happening, and this is going to be a great session. So. And then finally today we'll have a brief update on the Wakanda Digital Factory from Ricardo Mello, who is now, we're happy to have him here in the San Jose office. As Brent mentioned, Ricardo is a Wakanda Regional Director for the Americas. We launched the Wakanda Digital App Factory in December of last year. We already had a major event in San Francisco announcing that. Ricardo, of course, ran that. And he's hit the ground running here in San Jose. Always on the phone and closing deals, so we're really happy to have him here. It's great for Wakanda as well. So with that, thank you for your time. I'm going to give it over to Brian.
Okay, so like I said, it's summit season, and I realized that we were just almost ready to launch last time we had a 4DMethod meeting, but we hadn't been able to talk about the sessions yet, and it's been a full 6 weeks since then. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah.
About 6 weeks, yep. That's what we're aiming for here.
Yeah, so we were getting ready to close Early Bird last week, and we realized we hadn't had Early Bird open for any 4DMethod sessions, so we had to extend it for that and other reasons.
Oh, good.
So you've got another 2.5 weeks before Early Bird closes. You can save that $200, but you also have hotel rooms that you can book, and we've already exceeded our allotment for hotel rooms on some days. We've had to go and expand those allotments. So if you have any interest in going to the summit and are thinking about doing it, definitely go and register for your room and get ready to register for the summit in the next 2.5 weeks. We've got a lot of great sessions this year. Now that we are going on an 18-month cycle with the roadshow in between there, we have even more content to talk about when we get to the summit. these are just some of the sessions, and I just want to go through and make sure you know about some of these. There's going to be, of course, Laurent Hainaut's session on multi-threading. There's going to be Brent's session on virtualized data structure, which personally I'm really interested in. JPR's got a great one on a twist for 4D developers on object-oriented programming. Not the way most of the industry may talk about it, but it's a really great way to reuse your code and simplify your code to be more reusable throughout all of your work. We've got hardware integration, we've got audit trails and record histories, things people have asked for years. Kesuke Miyako is going to be talking about all of his GitHub repository and all those great little tools and projects that he's developed over the years. PDF creation, interactive maps, scaling server processes, and server tuning. So I think it's going to be a really great year to go, and I want you to take a look at all the sessions and make sure you book those rooms.
Can I interject one thing?
Yeah.
Let's not forget Sean's session on 4D Mobile with Angular and Wakanda.
That's the one on the bottom.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
No worries.
So yeah, please take a look at the site. We do have a persistent CSS bug that keeps crawling in there. If you're on a phone, you might not be able to get some of the descriptions. Switch over to desktop, you'll get them, and I'll get that bug fixed right after this meeting. But we hope to see you there in Portland, not Seattle. I saw the iNug. Somebody was thinking Seattle. If you're going to go to Seattle, make sure you leave time to drive down to Portland. And we'll see you soon.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much. Yeah, there's a lot of exciting sessions there, and yeah, it's always difficult to make it to every single one of them. So it'll be interesting to go over all the materials that are provided for the ones you don't get to. Again, we have just recently released, and I believe that there will be a new R version coming out sometime soon. I don't know if that's announced yet, but the 15R2 includes 4D server 64-bit, the finalized version of that, which is going to be great. The 4D developer edition 64-bit preview, a redesigned quick report, label editor, and property list. Form draw rewritten for a smoother OS X user experience. There's some videos, demos on the 4D site of what that looks like, and that's really pretty impressive. That'll have immediate benefit, and it'll make your application look pretty sweet right out of the gate. There will be the finalized version of the new network layer. That'll be nice to stay current with all the systems these days. And simplified 4D license activation. I went through that recently to bump up to the R version, and worked like a charm. So, and here we have Ricardo Mello. Hi, Ricardo. He's the regional director of the Americas. There's his email and his GitHub, which is full of some very interesting content. I'm going to kick it back over to you guys, and welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Here I am in San Jose to participate. Thanks for having me in first, and I will try to make this often, as much as I can for you guys. This is a community that Wakanda, as you know, has been in the market for about 4 years right now. It is a big effort of the 4D team. That right now it is the Wakanda team as well. We have all the interest to give you guys an environment for mobile development that's going to really make a difference. And that's what we are expecting, and what we are having as a result as the new release that we done. If you have been following Wakanda, for the users that have been with Wakanda already, this new version has a lot of difference from the previous, but it's just plus, it's not less. So you have everything that you had before, plus a tight integration with Angular to build responsive websites, and you have also a tight integration, and I'll explain exactly what is that, but a much more lean approach to when you want to develop for mobile, in terms of creating apps. So we combine Angular, Ionic, and Cordova, which are technologies that are very popular. And you guys probably know the web environment. It is a very complex environment too, because we have a horizontal number of devices those days and operating systems that makes development for the mobile quite complex. We're trying to simplify that as in the same principle as 4D with a new product, which is called the Wakanda Digital App Factory. And you will feel that it is not the same as you probably, for the developers, used to the older versions of Wakanda. It's not the same way, the same flow of development, but as soon as you get a demo or you see how we are doing now, you guys are going to be very excited, because it shows that mobile now it's real and is possible with Wakanda in a very interesting way and a very effective way. So I would like for Brent to suggest that sometime in the future I come and do maybe a demo for you guys of the new product. And also, if you have immediate needs right now, you say, I have a project right now. I'm thinking about mobile. Don't hesitate to contact me. I'll do a private demo for you out of the bat. Okay, so I make available for this community because, well, we have a great partnership and we are coming from the same source. So if any of you now have a project and you are thinking of developing for mobile in a serious way, we have something fantastic for you guys. So I guess that's my introduction for you guys. I hope I will see you guys more in the future, and hopefully with a demo sometime soon. And I guess I pass back to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. And that's very exciting. That you intend to be involved with 4DMethod, and that you're offering to do the demo and help anyone out with new projects. Having that jump start for new projects is really invaluable. Sometimes it's there's some new concepts in there that once you see them in action with your own systems, it can really be a huge time saver. So thank you again, Ricardo. Might be called.
I see already that some people already popping up with some requests. I will contact you as soon as I can. Okay.
I think your mailbox might be getting full.
I am very happy about that.
Yeah, good. So thank you again.
Right.
And I wanted to mention again, because I've mentioned it in the past, and now it's there in a new format as well, that there is really good tutorials and training for Wakanda, and it's all been updated recently. And if you step through the beginning steps of how you would make a Wakanda application, you can really immediately see how much you can do with very little effort, and it's pretty exciting. So I encourage everybody to go to the Wakanda site and check out their Wakanda Studio tutorials. So, and now we have the 4D iNug e-Digest with Ed Hammond. Hi, Ed.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, it's been a while since we had a meeting. I think December 2nd was the last one, so it's been 50 or 60 days. And there's been a lot of good content on the iNug. And of course, I like to emphasize that there's so much in the 4D and Wakanda environment, and so many features that not everybody can know about this. So it's nice to have a resource where you can go and people are discussing things that you may be looking at yourself, and they will give you some tips on what to expect or how to get the most from the product, and that's the iNug is a great resource for that. So with that in mind, I've picked out some of the more interesting conversations over the last month or so, and one of particular interest to us was a thread started by Douglas Cryer about publishing REST services from 4D. And this sparked a whole lot of conversation. There was advice from Miyako to experiment with 4D Mobile, and he offered up some of his examples on his GitHub, basically a CRUD example using Angular Wakanda. Kirk Brooks said, you know, you can set up your own simple REST code yourself, and he offered examples for that. There were some useful tool suggestions from Lee Hin, a product called Paw, which is a Mac application where you can see your REST requests and responses. Postman, which is a Chrome plugin, and he also offered a link for some best practices when developing a REST API. Julio Carnero, and I apologize for anybody whose name I am butchering. Come see me at the summit and correct me, and I'll do a better job. Julio offered some tips on converting web services calls to return JSON, and that's one method that he's used. But by far the most prolific poster on this subject was David Adams, who posted a message that was rather long and very well thought out, and he covered tools, abstraction of data, security, state management, data access API methods, single record retrieval, multi-record retrieval, record list retrieval, deferred job creation, had some miscellaneous notes on his own opinions. Of course, everybody expresses their own opinions on the NUG, but JSON as a flabby or rather verbose method for communicating data back and forth. He had tips on supporting multiple formats, making sure you set your MIME headers right, using consistent error objects, and advice on looking at what other people do. There are all kinds of web services and API examples out in the wild. Look at the documentation and see what works for you. There was a discussion on how do you handle large selections in a REST model. And there are multiple contributors to that thread. Suggestions for pagination versus infinite scrolling, stored sets with session management, and how do you handle garbage collection. So if you're interested in those things, do a search on Nabble or through the partner site on the iNUG threads, and you'll find a wealth of information. Balinder Walia had a web development tool that he's been using, Inspectlet, which shows you what your users are doing on your website. There was a discussion on encryption, covering let'sencrypt.org and HTTPS everywhere. A thread on starting 4D clients as a service. So if that's something that you're looking at, there's information out there on the iNUG. There was a compiler gotcha where a text variable was used in a form and inadvertently indicated as a checkbox. And so this user could not compile or could not get his structure compiled because everywhere else he had declared it as text, but 4D overwrote that just because it was indicated as a checkbox. And it was very difficult to find, so if you're having a problem like that, hopefully that'll save you some time. Danny Beaubien has a code analysis component. He's got a new version of that out. It is only for version 14 and 15. There's a lot of general discussion about and a lot of interest in introspection tools now that we have those commands available in 4D, and those are active subjects on the NUG. David Adams appeared once again later on with a discussion on data visualization and using D3 with 4D. And there was a lot of discussion on that. Olivier Deschanels was, I believe he did a session at a previous summit in Europe, and I think there's some video on the 4D website about that. If you have partner access, you can get at those videos. And Kirk Brooks had a tip on using simple HTTP server if you're using the D3 with a web area in 4D. There's some tips on moving to version 15 64-bit for Mac. Dave Nasrallah had some tips on deploying first with 32-bit, especially if you're using the auto-updating features, because that requires the older network layer, and then going to 64-bit and moving to the new network layer. There was a thread on how to get Amazon S3 content with GET using HTTP GET by Dan Ivey, and various examples on what people were doing to achieve that, with some comments on TCP received blob, Windows usage versus Mac usage, and the differences that you might be able to might have to find when using that command. Cannon Smith has an update to his object model. I'm sorry, his object module. Miyako had a tip on how query by formula is not optimized for pointer references to fields. If you're using a pointer reference to a field, the query becomes sequential because it has to dereference the pointer during execution. Lots of tips on updating standalone applications. There are several summit sessions coming up on that. Upcoming versions of replace string will be much faster, I think in version 15 R3, and that has to do with some of the libraries that are used inside of 4D. I think ICU has a version change that's going to be included in R3, and that will be much faster if you're using replace string. There was a thread on creating and publishing PDF documents on 4D server for web delivery. Randy Engel had a thread on that, and there were multiple answers and discussion on how to accomplish that. Here's a thread that seems to pop up about every quarter: virtual private servers versus physical servers. Multiple answers and discussion were had on that topic, and there are a number of opinions where you really need to spend a little time and some money perhaps on expert configuration for your virtual private servers. And the opinion is that you can get acceptable performance on a virtual private server if it's tuned correctly. There was a discussion on thin 4D clients and remote applications by Bill Wheel. That seems to be continually, and hopefully the AngularJS Wakanda integration will help greatly in providing solutions for people looking for that thin 4D client. And finally, Peter Jacobson has a new version of his product 4D Job Wallet, which is updated for Team Developer. So there's a lot of content out there over the last 60 days. If you haven't, if you're not a normal NUG reader, I suggest that you subscribe to the NUG. There's a lot of good content out there, and I'll bring you a summary next time we meet.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, that's a couple of those David Adams posts were really interesting with the REST API, and especially his D3, his work with D3 and data visualization. I expect that we'll be seeing some interesting shared code coming from his direction with the D3 stuff sometime this year. And also, I'm excited to take a look at Donnie Bobin's code analysis component. That looks really good. It's a lot of great introspection capabilities that people are leveraging now, and ought to help us developers. Yeah. So again, all discussion from the NUG is available online at the addresses we have here on the screen on the NABL, and register up and contribute back, just like all these people who we're thankful they're sharing their discussion on these topics, so that we don't have to solve the same problems. So, and moving on, what's to know in the knowledge base? Well, we have a tech tip here for truncating with ellipses in listbox. It's actually just an option that you can click on, and automatically, instead of just cutting the text off at the end, it'll throw in ellipses for you. If you've ever tried to calculate the width of the text on the fly, depending on how wide the object is and the window is and all that stuff, and expect that to work over time, it can be a real challenge. So that's a real nice option to have in a list box. There's a Knowledgebase article on, I think that we mentioned earlier, on deploying 4D server 64-bit for Macs. It's not only, it has several tips on how to do that, how to compile it, but also some other things that you need to take note of, like the stack sizes need to be bigger now for processes. So remember, if you're going to run 64-bit, set the stack sizes to 0, which is now a default value, where it automatically calculates and expands the stack size if need be, or just set them to a higher value. But automatic is going to be an attractive thing for most people. And they also, in this tech note, discuss the new network layer named ServerNet. I, for one, welcome our new ServerNet overlord and the day when ServerNet becomes self-aware. No, I'm very excited about the new network layer and the capabilities that it's gonna give us for performance and security, and it's just a lot of multiplying benefits from them rebuilding the network layer from the ground up. So that's a huge accomplishment by 4D. And also, there's some tips in the article about differences in how encrypted client connections will work, and I know Ed hit on that as a NUG element, but this is also discussed in this Knowledgebase article, so check it out. There's also another article from JPR on the text-to-picture conversion, which he gives some code for replacing his old text-to-pict that used blobs in a crafty way to push text into a picture. It's back in I think that's been around since the 90s or something. I don't know. But it's had a good run. But now we can do the same thing better with SVG. And he also goes into his new preferred way of coding, where you pass an object into a method that you build of all the parameters that the method needs. That does seem to be an interesting thing for methods that have 10, 20 or more different parameters. It can be a headache to coordinate all of that. We have the ability now to show variable types in the debugger, which is kind of nice. It's just you just turn it on and it'll show you exactly what the variable types are. That helps especially if you don't have a good variable naming convention, which I think you should have. but that's just my opinion. But in any case, this will help us out to easily see what the types of variables are that you're trying to step through in the code. And finally, we have another third-party knowledge base article from David Adams on migrating away from the 4D picture library. Now, we've used the 4D picture library for since the early days, and it was a huge advantage to have for managing picture resources on Mac and PCs. And with the retiring of support for QuickDraw, we still have the picture library, but the preferred way to manage your pictures is to have them in the resources folder. However, if you just have them in the resources folder, you don't have quite as a nice of a way to keep track of them as you do with the old picture library. So in this article, there's a sample database and descriptions of how to migrate the code that you used directed to the picture library, and it also has a new interface for the picture library, and also in that interface it calculates ways that you can render pictures with object set format. It auto-calculates the paths in the resources folder for you, relative and absolute, and it gives you object parameters for an included icon generator, which is really cool. So you can have a picture, an instance of a picture that is rendered differently depending on how on certain settings that you apply in this image manager. Very cool stuff. Check it out. David Adams is also using objects as parameters for methods, so it looks like the smart way to go when JPR and David Adams are both doing it. So, right. So, knowledge base, a lot to learn there. Really can move your skill set forward. And you get a good look at the new features and new versions of 4D. And now we have our segment called Hey 4D. Well, we already have query by attribute. Well, we just got that, but we already have it now in V15. And we have our trusted old selection to array. How about adding selection to array for 4D object attributes? Well, that's basically what the wrapper method that I talked about for the demo earlier. But it'd be great to have an actual 4D command for that, so that you wouldn't have to use my wrapper method. But yeah, so it'd be a lot cooler if you did 4D. Thanks for taking it into consideration. For all these ideas, you can go to the 4D forums at the path below to submit feature requests. So whenever you get some good ideas, stuff that would help our applications and development environments, go there and let them know. And without further ado, we have our special topic today from Guy Algot. It's a salesperson incentive interface that he built with 4D object tools and AreaList Pro. Guy Algot is a solutions specialist. He's been a 4D developer since version 2, and he specializes in designing custom 4D databases for companies all over North America. He's built systems for cellular point of sales, commercial internet real estate, IEP management, and ministry donation tracking. So his favorite tools, as we mentioned, are object tools, AreaList Pro, MyConnect, Foundation, and especially 4D. So when he's not doing development, Guy works on his curling skills. So it's a popular sport where he lives in Canada, and in fact he sells a product for timing curling rocks. We'll hopefully get to see a demo of that product as well. It's got it keeps track of your hog-to-hog times, I understand, so I'm very excited to check it out. So, Guy, I'm going to switch over to you and take a look at your application.
Thanks, Brent.
Yep.
Alrighty. So let's see if I can get this set up for my screen share. You are presenting. Okay, so it's
just have to share your.
So click the green sort of monitor icon, and it's supposed to ask me which screen to share, and nothing's happening. Gotta love technology. Let's try swapping this. No. Well, there you go. When I go to click screen share, nothing happens.
Are you using a screen?
Well, I certainly am.
Are you running off that cube in the background?
No, I'm not running off that cube, although I wish I had a machine like it, because I sure do screen share. Why won't it screen share? Chat. Okay, it hides the chat. Well, I suppose I could, I wonder if because I did try it earlier and it did work, so, obviously forgot to sacrifice a chicken or something for the demo.
Oh no. Well, would you like to try reconnecting?
Sure. Why don't I quit my browser and connect back?
Okay.
Be right back.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, for the issue there, but you can contact Guy at I'm not sure how to say it, but Mac Jedi, I assume. That's not Slovenian. That's macjedi.ca. And his LinkedIn is Guy-Algot-902-98621. And check out his Twitter account, PokerFace Mac. A lot of good discussion of curling, and I know there's been some controversy on the curling brooms that they have now. The technology has actually caught up with the curling sport, and the curling brooms are pretty much magic now. You can make the curling rock go in circles, I understand.
Well, not quite circles, but. Okay, so everybody can see the picture of my wife clearing our driveway there?
Let's see. Hey, can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Good, okay. Well, she did that so I could get my car out of the garage. So now that we've gotten all of the Canadian winter jokes out of the way, we can probably start the presentation.
All right.
So what I'm going to demo is essentially an interface that I created for a client. It's based on the point of sale application that I have, and they sell basically cellular phones, and so the sales structure for their organization is very complicated. The salespeople get incentives based on the number of particular plans they sell, and whether it's a voice or a data or a hardware upgrade, and they have quotas based on where the location, the position, the region, and all kinds of information like that. So the interface takes data from a variety of places, and I'll just slowly go through here. We've got a mishmash of users and stores and people and quotas, which are all stored in a single object. The let me bring up the, so this is basically the structure for all of the data. It's a single table, and along with the fields shown here, that's all of the information that from a 4D standpoint, as far as the structure goes, is needed. So everything is the object. All of the arrays and all the data stored in the arrays are stored in the single object, and along with some other data like the date and the year, month, and when it was closed. It's pretty simple as far as the actual structure itself goes. So everybody see that screen okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I talked about some of their quotas. So just to sort of as a brief explanation, the quota information that I'll load up here, we've got a variety of months that have been saved. And so the information for their quotas is loaded in, and this information comes from a variety of places. As with most companies, their love for Excel knows no bounds. So a lot of the information that they pass around and consume and regurgitate is based on Excel spreadsheets. So a lot of the quota information here that's displayed in this area list is pulled in from a spreadsheet that a manager would massage depending on sales incentives and time of the year and things like that. So for example, I've got a breakdown here of retail stores in Alberta, and we've got retail stores in BC. The organization had around 50 stores, and at any particular time might have about 250 active salespeople. So they had stores in Alberta and in BC. They had different. They were Rogers and Fido. Those are two of our cellular carriers here. And so then basically, and we've got team leaders, and you've also got a store quota as well as an area manager quota. So all of this information is used to determine how a person gets their incentive. So if they sell a certain number of voice and a certain number of data and a certain number of hardware upgrades, they get a certain level of sales and an incentive. And then so each of these areas is all stored in our object. This here is an audit, a couple of arrays. That this is just a regular list box. So I've got a mixture of AreaList and list boxes on this screen. And I mean, my usage of AreaList Pro, AreaList Pro has been around for many years, as I'm sure many know, as well as object tools. I've been using objects for many years as well in older versions of 4D. And certainly, you know, any of this could be done with a newer version. I'm using version 13 for this one here, but you could certainly do something similar with list boxes and objects today. One of the main reasons for using AreaList is its control over formatting and its ability to be able to report back the columns or the arrays being used in the AreaList. So that's one thing that I believe there's a new command now with list boxes that you can now actually determine what arrays are being used in the list box. So for example, when I load the code here, click load, this is actually loading going into the object and loading up the object from the blob. So Object Tools has a number of commands that would allow you to load the information. So it starts off by just having a handle in memory, and maybe the better way to do it is just to show some sample code here, where essentially you create your object in memory with Object Tools, and then it allows you to place various pieces of data, whether it be real or an array, or a string or a pointer or a long. All of that data can be placed into the object and accessed at any point in time. Just like anything that you put in memory, you also have to clear it. So, being good memory management, you got to make sure that that information, once you've collected it, is then cleared from memory. So this is just a very simple example of how an object can be created in memory, and various pieces of data can be assigned to it, and then the object itself can then be stored into the blob. So one of the first operations that happens is that this is collected at a certain, because a lot of the information changes so much, it gives a snapshot in time. So if I switch over to this tab, which shows called variants and users, this represents a list of all of the users that existed, their staff list. So they had, at this point in time, they had 778 staff on the list. Not all of them are active, and so part of what this maintains is arrays that tell people who's active, who's not, whether or not they have any base commissions or incentives. Because what will happen routinely is that people will change stores. So the incentives that they run are based on the store they're at that time. So information like that's collected. So an automated procedure gathers all this information at the first of the month, and then the incentives are run from there. So if I switch over to my working tab here, you can see a lot of the information here. And I'm not going to go through the guts of how this information is collected. There's essentially a massive report or a process that goes through their invoices and their invoice items and collects all of the information based on the salesperson and summarizes all of that here in a very large area list to collect all the information. But what you can see by some of the colorings here is that, for example, this store here did not make their voice quota, and so the information from the invoices, the invoice items, information from the quotas, information from the users is all pulled together into this one area. And this is sort of their summary screen, and this determines, using all of the arrays and all the calculations, shows what a particular person made as far as their number of sales and whether or not they made their quota. So the colorizations, as you scroll through here, shows, you can immediately see those people that made their quota, those people that didn't make their quota, and the information regarding other incentives. So a lot of these columns, I'm more towards the process. I'm going to kind of glaze over that because it's specific in that, but you've got things like hardware upgrades and accessories, and all that pulls into their information. So as I slide over here,
is this all calculated upon showing the window, or is this a?
No, there's actually, I have a get data button down here, and so if the person wants to sort of refresh the data, because the data changes a lot, the ongoing system will calculate all the information. They'll change invoices. They'll find out that somebody's moved somewhere else. So at any point in time, someone can click on a get data, and this process goes through and runs this very large method, which takes about 5 minutes to collect all the data, and then basically summarizes all of this information from the various areas into this one very large ALP area.
Yeah, that's a really cool dashboard with all the specs that any spec that anybody could want about performance, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, and that was the whole gist of the interface, was that they were taking data from a lot of different places. You know, for example, their quotas here. I'll show you what. So their Excel spreadsheet would look like this, and this is how they would manage their quota data. So then they would basically copy and paste this from Excel, and the fill quota button here would allow them to, once they copied the data from the spreadsheet, they would then come here, click fill quota, and it would then populate the quota with the information that they had copied from the spreadsheet. And very quickly they could fill multiple areas in that way. So this list would be done automatically by the system, whereas the fill variance and CMP would be done from an Excel spreadsheet. And all of that information is then gathered and used here to allow the person essentially doing the incentives to determine whether somebody, gets their quota, doesn't get their quota. And part of what the levels, so for example, this person here met their level 1 quota, and if I go back to my summary page we haven't shown here, so this is another list box with a bunch of arrays that shows what their levels are, what they're based on their title, which dealer they're with, and their gross profit minimum and maximum. They had to make all these certain things to get to a certain level, and based on that level, so if you're a level 1 Rogers retail person, you got 3%, and your gross profit had to be within a certain range. And so that part of that lookup happens for something like this. So then you have a percentage of 3%, and therefore the amount for that based on what on their sales is $59.87, and then they've got a variety of other incentives that go along with that. They've got a store amount. If it's an area manager, they control a store, so that store shows up there. They have a CMP amount, which is another one of their incentives. They have a variance amount, so individual managers are held accountable for their variance, and they get bonuses based on that, and that all calculates up into their adjustment.
Do you save snapshots of these calculations so that you can measure them over time?
Yeah, certainly that's each of the months here that I have represent over time, but one of the nice things is that I've got the ability to, because everything is stored in an object, I can save a copy anytime out. So sometimes they might say, well, we want to change a quota or an incentive or a gate and sort of do a what-if analysis. So the save a copy is rather simple code.
Right.
Basically, I just dump out the entire record, and so they have the ability to dump out their current incentive, run the calculation or make the change they want, and look at the numbers, and then say, okay, I'm done with that. Now I'm going to reload it, and they can dump the entire record out, run what they want, reload it back in, and all that's done very easily.
I think with all the advanced sort of aggregate data and calculations that you have there, some data visualization would be a huge thing for this application.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, David Adams could come and spend days and weeks on this on this part.
Be looking for that D3 from David Adams soon.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, AreaList Pro. Basically, one of the main advantages is obviously the formatting. So very quickly, somebody can scroll down and, okay, I see that this store didn't make their voice quota. Their quota was 33. They were supposed to be 26. It's flagged as red. Anybody who is flagged as the blue numbers represent ones where they passed. I've also got a couple of other colors going on here, which I don't think show up on this list. But when they do their import, their initial import, somebody might, for example, make a typo on a salesperson's name, and so when that person shows up, the orange or the gray means they have no quota or they have no store, so they can quickly go through the list, find those errors, fix them, and then go ahead and rerun the data. So one of the other items that they wanted to be able to do, obviously, is with a lot of data like this, you're making changes. You say, okay, well, this person, they've got 3, but really we're going to give them 5 because there's a special incentive this month or something like that. So I've got individual based on various edits that they would make. So when they go ahead and make a change in the array, in the column, it automatically flags what section it's in, what the old value is, what the new value is, and the person can come here and make a comment. Once they save that, that comment is then stored, and you can do this multiple times. So I could come back and change this 3, 4, 5 times, and I would see the progress of the various edits being done for that particular person.
Cool.
So a lot of that is stored. Again, it's all stored in arrays. So one of the things that so if we take a look at the load, go back to this method here. So this method here loads my arrays in based on the area and the handle to my object. So because I've got multiple areas, the one shown here, this is my quota area. The variance area was another one. The DNGP area was the main screen. And so if we open up this method, we can take a look at the loading of the arrays. And so this command here basically gets all of the columns in the area for the area list. So that brings back an array of pointers. And then the next one gives me all my names. And based on that, I can then load all of the information from that, from using the array of pointers and the array of names. Do this and basically do the same thing on save. So the information is all of the arrays are pulled into an array of pointers. All the names are pulled in names. And again, with your key value pairs, the name, when the array is set up on the layout, it uses that name to save it. So that information is stored with in the actual AreaList point. So when I want to add a column, I can simply add in a column to my AreaList area, and this code continues to work. I've added some code to automatically resize the array. So if I add a column, for example, I add a column in August, and then I go back and look at May's data, that array is not going to be there. So the code automatically handles the resizing of the array to make sure that the information is shown correctly, and you don't get a mismatch size of arrays.
That's nice. It's good to have a flexible interface like that.
Absolutely, yeah, you betcha. So a lot of that that information is made, really easy by a lot of these commands, where you can genericize the dealing with the multiple areas. So this load arrays is called multiple times for every place where I want to load the various areas in. And then I've got some variables that I store. So their variance amount, for example, if the store has less than a $50 variance, they get their variance amount. If it's over, it's not. So they can change that particular number on the fly and for particular months. They also have some quotas here. So a personal quota for Rogers is 2,000, whereas for Fido it's 1,700. So all of that information, again, is stored in the object. We've got all of our variables here, all of our quotas here, and then we've got a bunch of arrays. Here's all our users. Here's the entire user list being stored in the object. So all of these arrays are stored. The information for the quotas, all of that's adjusted with a resize, again, to make sure that if something happens, the sizes of the arrays are all kept consistent. And when that's done, it's loaded. Everything's loaded up, and we clear our object. So we simply do the reverse when we save it, and stick the information back into the object. So the flexibility of the arrays and the objects really makes an interface like this shine, and the flexibility to be able to change it without having to worry about updating, structures or tables, or where the information is coming from, or where it might be pulled from, makes it very flexible.
That's cool use of object tools there. It's a it's the 4D commands are very similar, and it's just across the board a huge thing for the 4D language to integrate objects in different manners. I mean, I think we're just going to keep finding uses for that kind of a data type.
Yeah, exactly.
You've had the advantage of working with them since how long since you've been using?
Well, I was trying to remember when a friend of mine introduced me to object tools quite a few years ago. I mean, I started using object tools, I think, in version 3, and it's been through 4. Version 5 was just introduced with support for 64-bit. So very flexible, and I mean, I guess I was a little, when I was at the last summit, everybody was really excited about objects, and I was kind of like, well, how come? I've been using them for a long time. And I guess finally, especially when I talk to you, I guess there's a lot of people out there that haven't used object tools or don't know about objects, and so that was about a lot of excitement. So I'm glad to see 4D finally bringing objects into the fold, and because they're very powerful, very flexible. You can do lots of things with them. I mean, I've got systems where I store, for example, I've got a client who stores audit. They will take a record and they'll want to merge it with another record. So you have a duplicate, for example, a duplicate contact, but they want the ability to be able to reverse that operation in case somebody makes a mistake, because we know we all make mistakes. So the original contact is stored inside an object, and if somebody decides they want to reverse that operation, I simply pull the entire record out of the object, put it back into the database, and problem solved. So very flexible in terms of that sense.
Yeah, it's basically an audit trail or a history. What do they call it? Version history.
Yeah.
And the ability, I've been playing with the query by attribute with the native 4D object fields, and that could have something to offer as well, to be able to query all that historical data that you have in the objects.
Right.
Well, very cool. Mike has a question here. Guy, how do you handle ad hoc queries and reports with objects?
Well, I've never really had a need to do any sort of query. I guess in backing that up, I would say any time that I need to do a search on any data that's in an object, I would store it in the structure. So if, for example, here, if I want to find, the quota date, for example, is one of the fields I have here. Object Tools does have the ability to use, you can have complicated objects, so you can have objects embedded in objects. You can use dot notation to refer to those individual items. And so you would have to, I mean, if there was something that you needed to deconstruct in the object, then you would have to essentially deconstruct that the item from the object and find it. So, in cases where you would have items that you needed to do a query on or reporting on, you might want to think of it a little bit differently. But from a reporting standpoint, this interface here, when they're done, what they do is then they do an export, and this essentially dumps all of the data out so that they can then open it with Excel. I mean, one of the things that Brett and I were talking about earlier was I mentioned it'd be nice to have an off-screen list box so that I could automate, because I've got I've got exports to be able to dump data from a list box. And I'd like to automate some of those. And since a list box has to exist in a dialog, I mean, you could hack a way around it, I guess, to show it, but to be able to open an off-screen list box like you do an off-screen 4D write area would be a nice feature to have. So, but I've never had a situation where I've needed to do that. If I did have that situation, I would put the relevant data in the table and then search on it that way. But at this point, in this particular interface, like nobody's ever come back and said, let's find me all the salespeople who made 113% of their quota over the last 6 months. And not an unrealistic question, but it's not something that that I've had to deal with. So,
in any case, they'd know who to ask.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, but I would say in those cases, you probably want to have more of that type of information in the structure, so it can be queried. I mean, one of the nice things about the new 4D objects is that you can query them, and they so that's a great feature. Love to see that. And in those cases, it'd be great to do something like that. But yeah, I would simply use the structure, database structure on those places where I might want to query on something like that.
Yeah, not to plug my summit session again, but I discussed a little bit of a strategy with the virtualized data structure where you can expose data stored in these objects and expand the data stored in those objects on the fly according to how your virtual structure is registered, and so it can help to smooth out all the relations and the funky ways that we optimize our data, whether it be objects or normalized tables, and so that the users don't have to sift through all of that structure and is presented in a more flat manner. So, there might be some interesting aspects in the session.
Absolutely.
This is Brian.
Hi.
I want to back you up on your session since you're plugging that. I also want to bring up one other session that's not published yet. If this topic really interests people, if you're going to the summit, there's going to be another topic also on comparing and contrasting the benefits and downsides to keeping all your data completely within the structure or moving some of it or all of it into objects. And
cool.
This could be done by Olivier Deschanels, and it'd be really interesting to really learn the advantages and disadvantages of each technique.
Yeah, no, it's a game changer, having the object fields and whatnot. So it's there's a lot to learn that we have to learn from this case study here with Guy, and thanks so much for the demo. It looks like again there's been just a tremendous amount of work put into this, and I'm sure that the people whose spreadsheets that you have to work with are really thrilled with the way that you're able to mash up all this data and direct everybody's attention to it by color coding the rows and cells. So does anybody else have any questions for Guy? No?
Thank you for the demo here.
Just a second,
Yeah.
The mic was off. Now it's on.
Oh, hi, Guy. Thanks for the demo. So is that application a standalone application that's used by one administrator or client server, or who actually uses the app there at that?
So it's client server. I mean, it's essentially the interface itself is used by one person primarily. They had three what they call analysts that would work underneath her to check the data and make sure that the information that was entered and collected was correct. So, but they went, to give an example, they would spend, the three analysts along with herself would spend about a week doing what this interface does in about an hour. So it was this. I mean, it started out, as with most things. I mean, it started out as a way to make that sort of operation a lot faster, and it certainly did that. But it's very complicated. I mean, certainly their sales process was by far one of the most complicated ones I had ever seen, and I'm not sure if there's probably companies out there that maybe do it that way as well. But based on it was driven a lot by the cellular industry and how they work and operate. I mean, they're a sales driven operation. So, but it was client server, and I mean they had all of their stores would connect over the WAN to the server. So they would routinely have anywhere from 90 to 120 users connected to their server.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. Hopefully we're still alive there. I dropped out. But yeah, I was going to mention that if I could find the date, but one of our next 4DMethod meetings, and I'll just look it up so I know what I'm talking about. We'll be looking at a similar kind of interface with similar calculations. It'll be the one in June, actually, with the application from Test Takers. They have a sort of a performance tracking interface where they track the performance of teachers teaching students in an SAT prep class, so that they can judge how a teacher is performing by how much the students' scores are going up after each successive test. So 4D is a great way to deliver these sort of interfaces that would otherwise be pretty tricky to put together with other type of application environments. So there's so many of these type of applications out there that are running people's businesses in very smart ways. They're able to handle this information that other people, as Guy said, it would take them weeks to put it together every quarter or so, and it's a huge time saver to have this live. Right, so let me just share my slides one more time because I got dumped out. Thank you, Chrome. Here's Guy's information one more time if you'd like to contact him and discuss the presentation and his application a little bit more. There's Guy. Hi, Guy. And our next meeting, which is you can check out on our schedule on the website there on the schedule tab, we'll have Rob Laveau of Plugger Software. We'll demo some of his powerful 4D plugins. Again, Rob Laveau, big name in the industry. Very excited to see what he has up his sleeve right now, and figure out how he does what he does, because he does some pretty awesome work. Again, calling for speakers who would like to demo some of their work and applications. We still have an open date in April 21st, and we'll be posting our dates for the rest of the year coming up soon. So if you'd like to show off some of your work in an application, or you're just a user that wants to show what how you're using an application, great. And let's see some Wakanda developers out there too. I'm real excited to see what they're doing with the new version of Wakanda. Hopefully we get a demo in from Ricardo Mello. So.
Yeah, well, I'll check with Ricardo on that, Brent. I don't know if that's the same week as the summit in Europe, but I'll check it out and let you know.
Okay. Well, let's hope not. Have to look at that myself.
Yeah.
So, all right. If anyone else has any more questions or anything to discuss, now's the time. Any feedback is appreciated for these meetings or the 4DMethod website, or I know that Jim and 4D appreciate any feedback. So, so let us know what you think. Okay, well, that appears to be all. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in the next meeting.
Thanks a lot, Brent.
Okay, all right, we'll see you.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks, Ed.
You bet, Jim. See you later.
Goodbye.